Manuel's eyebrows rose. What's the panic? What do those students have to do with you? His scowling eyes were too burning, and Andrew pushed down the uneasiness in his mind, unwilling to spill the beans about Evelyn's existence after all. It was a good thing that they were in no danger. That tiny figure, clearly scared to death, had killed so many mutants with a cold weapon. Andrew's chest tightened with heartache, only wishing to immediately hold Evelyn in his arms to gently coax and comfort her. It was just that he couldn't let Manuel see the signs yet. He pretended to smile lightly. What does it matter? As an instructor, I am responsible for my students. Manuel's eyes flowed around his face for a while. Seeing that he did not look like he was faking, he let go of the suspicion in his heart. He took a sip of wine. All right, you continue to keep an eye on it. I'll go get something to eat first. Before leaving, he took one last look at the monitor, and that short student looked straight at the camera as if he had senses. That small white face, splattered with a few drops of blood from the mutant species, suddenly became delicate and flirtatious. Manuel shook his head, his face not looking too good. What the hell? He actually found a man dainty and flirtatious. It must have been too long since he let it out. He sighed and walked away. Andrew slumped heavily in his chair as he deflated. He watched the monitor feed and couldn't help but run his hand twice over the figure inside. Those calm eyes were full of love and lust. It was almost dark, the inside of the tent was out of sight, and he was a little dismayed. Evelyn cleaned the blood off her body with water from the river. Robert's face was torn, wanting to ask, but not daring to. Want to know why I dared to kill a mutant? Evelyn was in quite a good mood, and she took the lead in asking the question. Robert nodded heavily. With her mind spinning, she said, I don't know. I picked up the knife and did it on instinct. Zach cleaned up the mutant, his mind sinking. She must have experienced something very dangerous before she lost her memory. How else could she explain how the honorable noblewoman could use a knife so skillfully? Her former life must not have been too wonderful. Thinking of this, Zach stopped the work in his hand, walked over to Evelyn, and handed her 2 laser guns. Next time you're in danger, use these. Robert glanced over. Don't need yours, I'll give them to her. He pulled out several weapons in a row from the space knob, each one singly better than Zach's. Although Robert didn't say anything either, as a nobleman, the bone-deep superiority still unconsciously flowed out. Zach's fingertips were white as he pinched the gun. He was born not as good as Robert and the others. He didn't have much money to buy weapons. These 2 guns were already the best he had on him. They just weren't as good as the ones Robert had brought out when it came to fighting, obviously. Evelyn smiled and took Zach's guns. Yeah, I was eyeballing you just now when you were fighting and was just about to get 2 of these guns of yours to use. Zach breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that she didn't mind. Robert tried to persuade again. That one of his has a short range and strong recoil. Only civilians use that crap. These are my special guns from the army. Evelyn touched the gun in her hand, seemingly fond of it, and raised her head to refuse. Civilians use civilian things. I'm a civilian too. With respect to the original owner's mysterious past, it is definitely impossible to be any kind of aristocrat. Robert didn't know which sentence he said wrongly, making Evelyn's attitude change, and was a little anxious in his heart. I'm not saying that civilians are bad. It's just that these weapons of mine can protect you to a greater extent. Evelyn's expression changed, withdrawing that little bit of discomfort in her heart. What was she counting on? Birth was not an option. Compared to Kevin and the others, Robert was already very good, at least in the beginning when she didn't know her identity. Richard used force to force her to change beds. Robert also looked at the bullying and stood up for her. A small glimpse of the big picture, a glimpse of the leopard. I know that he is not the kind of people who rely on their status to bully the weak. He cannot see Zach's weapons, but just did not say a bad word about him. It's just that the education he received from childhood made him unconsciously bring that clear-cut arrogance with him. Evelyn chose 2 of the firearms inside the ones he brought out. Well, I'll take these 2. Thank you. Robert looked at the 2 she chose, both of which were on the lower end of the price scale, and narrowed his eyes without saying anything else. Evelyn put a few guns in the space knob and put them away. Strange, we killed so many mutants. Why haven't Daniel and the others come back yet? Zach thought deeply for a moment. Could they have gone too far? Robert maneuvered the light brain. I'll send them a message. Unfortunately, after several tries, he couldn't send it. His heart sank. Can't reach them. Evelyn's willow eyebrows rose. It can't be in any danger, right? After saying that, she slapped her own mouth. She had just accurately predicted the mutant species twice in a row. Blah, 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 blah. They're definitely fine. Maybe they killed a lot of mutant species, took a lot of points, and are on their way back. Let's hope what she said comes true once more. The night was low, the twilight was getting thicker, the sky was filled with a layer of deep blue mist, the starry lights lit up the night sky, creating a mysterious and quiet atmosphere. The more time stretched out, the more the hearts of the three people fell. Killing a mutant species cannot be so late and still not come back. Robert made the bed in silence. You rest first. I'll go out and look for it. Evelyn grabbed his wrist. It's dark. It's too dangerous for you to go now. We'll go together at first light tomorrow. Zach also disagreed. Evelyn is right. If you really meet any danger, so many of them can't solve it. It won't help if you go. One more person is more power. Tomorrow we will go together. Robert pondered for half a day, finally sighed and nodded. You rest inside. He looked to Zach. I'll guard the first half of the night. You guard the second. No problem. No problem. He turned and headed out of the tent. Zach sat stiffly as Evelyn lay down on the bed and patted the empty spot next to him. Why don't you come over here and rest for a while? Zach's expression didn't change. Only the clenched palms of his hands proved how nervous he was at the moment. He quickly got on the bed and lay on his side. Expecting to be sleepy after a busy day, Evelyn couldn't sleep when she actually laid down on the bed. Looking sideways at Zach, who had his eyes tightly closed, Evelyn pondered. Thunder System's supernatural ability, the peak of the 4th stage. With the body of a civilian to enter the military school. During this time, Evelyn also had some understanding of the rules of the stars. It was very difficult for a civilian to break rank, and Zach must have suffered a lot to get to this point. She was silent as she took her first serious look at him. He had thick, short black hair, unlike the others, with their colorful locks, and it was not clear if it was dyed or a genetic mutation. They say the only test of a handsome man is an inch. That made perfect sense when it came to Zach, who was quite stunning to look at even without any grooming. Zach's features were good-looking, with double eyelids and a high nose, looking a bit bratty when he wasn't smiling. If she only looked at his face, she would never have guessed that a man with such a face was a civilian. That kind of untamed temperament, only dislike of the sky and the earth to turn the hands of the reign of the hegemonic president will have. Maybe it was also because of his childhood experience. He had always been a maverick, and only after meeting her did he hang out with Daniel and the others. Zach stiffened, unable to ignore the fiery sight beside him. He struggled in his mind. Should he pretend to be asleep or open his eyes? Before he could figure it out, his body moved one step faster, and he opened his eyes to meet Evelyn's. Time seemed to stand still in this moment. In such a peaceful atmosphere, she got a good look at Zach's eyes, a light brown color that made his face even more stunning. Zach's throat rolled, and he spoke in a muffled voice. Not sleepy. Evelyn shifted her position, resting her hand under her head. You said before that the noble women's camp had to pick the other half to go with the escort when they reached 20? His foolish mind instantly felt like a bucket of cold water had been poured on it when he heard that. Yes. So if I find my other half before I go to your girls' camp, do I have to pick one when I go? Zach's heart raced. His mind had no free time to think about what she meant by that, and he could only reply mechanically. I don't know. That hasn't happened yet. Evelyn leaned on her elbows and thought, wondering if she was going to go to your girls' camp right after this field training, and by then I was afraid it would be too late. She didn't want to be with people she didn't know. With the way things were going, picking 3 of these roommates would be best. Zach in front of her was the best choice. The force value was only rivaled by Robert out of everyone. However, he was a civilian with a simple family history, so picking him wouldn't cause too much trouble in the future. Although Robert could be okay, he had a twin brother William, who also had thoughts about her. It wouldn't be good if she chose Robert and not William. She had been tortured by both brothers in her last life, and she couldn't afford to make the same mistake in this life. It was human to have their own preferences. Even though everyone was nice to her, she couldn't be everyone's favorite. There was already someone in mind. Do you want to be my other half? Zach's pupils constricted, his mouth quicker than his reaction. Yes. Evelyn still needed to double-check. Did Zach want to be with her because he couldn't reach other noble women? It was a bit of a pretentious move, but she still didn't want to think that she was just a choice for the reproductive desires that men developed as they came of age. Is it because you can't reach other noble women? Zach was busy shaking his head. No, it's because you're different. Evelyn propped her head up. Different in what way? I can't say, maybe. It was that time when you insisted, even though you obviously couldn't run. It made me see some shadows of myself from before, so I couldn't help but pay a little more attention to you. At the back of the know your identity, in death your life, know your character. Everything about you brought me a kind of shock. I just knew that you were different from other noble women. To be honest, he had never thought of having a woman in his life at first. Probably because of his birth, he was very sensitive to his identity. Not because of low self-esteem, it was just that the feeling of superiority that those nobles unintentionally exuded made him nauseous. He had never seen a noble woman, but he also knew that women who were scarce in number and high in status, how could they not be condescending once the power was in their hands? That's why he never intended to find his other half from the start. The concern for Evelyn also started from the first time he met her. At that time, she was obviously weak, but still insisted on running through 10 kilometers. That sense of toughness made him interested in knowing more, and after realizing that she was a woman, his heart was even more shocked. He couldn't help but start paying attention to everything about her. Slowly, the heart fell in without realizing it. Evelyn's mind was made up. She rolled over and lay flat on her back. Well, go to sleep. Zach's heart felt like it had feathers tickling it, unable to figure out what her words meant, both anticipating and fearing that the anticipation would be dashed. He restrained his violent breathing and stared at the roof of the tent with his eyes open, his mind wandering. The downside of being smart is that you love to brainstorm, and you can't help but fumble with your thoughts at the slightest thing. Did he just said the wrong thing? That's why she wasn't happy that the nice atmosphere in front of her had been messed up by him after all. The more Zach thought about it, the more scared he became, and his breathing went haywire. Evelyn listened to the gradually ragged breathing in her ears and opened her eyes again to look at him. His eyes were red. Hey, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying? Zach turned his head slightly sideways in some distress. Nothing. Evelyn sighed and reached out to hug him, her face pressed against his chest. Are you stupid? I've asked you if you want to be my other half, and you still don't get it. What are you imagining for yourself? Zach's nose soured and he wrapped his arms around Evelyn, the small soft mass pressed against his chest, his heart beating so fast his scalp tingled. Evelyn pressed herself against his chest, looking up slightly, and the two of them looked at each other again. The air froze, and Zach looked closely at Evelyn's face, wanting to press up against her and rub her whole body into his chest without a care in the world. But he didn't dare. She was too good, too powerful a purifier, and she deserved to be matched with someone better and stronger. Even just thinking about being with her, he felt despicable. Who was someone like him to defile her? Despite getting a hint from her, everything he did to her made Zach feel like he was overstepping his bounds. Evelyn didn't think about it that much. She just felt a little thirsty all of a sudden. It's been a while since I've kissed a man. Ha ha ha. Seeing that he didn't make any other moves, she carefully stretched her neck and her lips gently covered his. It was as if the fire inside Zach had an outlet. Since it was all irrigated, why not just irrigate it to the end? There was no way he could refuse his beloved's throes. Zach held Evelyn tightly. He opened his lips and sucked the juices from her mouth, savoring every nook and cranny. Even the hand on her back trembled slightly. The heart beat like thunder. Not knowing how long he had been lingering, he slightly let go of the lips that he had sucked red. The person in his arms had fallen asleep without realizing it. Zach inwardly excitedly hugged her, stroking her back tenderly one by one, not daring to move too much for fear of waking her up. Just staring straight at her until the shift change in the second half of the night. After a good night's sleep, Evelyn naturally woke up from her nap at the crack of dawn. Robert was sitting on a stool taking a nap. When he saw her wake up, he went out to fetch hot water and pulled a toothbrush and toothpaste towel out of his space. Evelyn washed her face and brushed her teeth. Zach set up a pot and cooked a pot of millet porridge, and Robert started packing. We're going to find Daniel and the others today, so we need to put away the tent and those first. The three of them split up and quickly packed up. The end of the millet porridge, 3 or 2 mouthfuls of food, officially on the road. Although Zach did not sleep all night, but extraordinarily spirited, I do not know how many times I peeped at Evelyn on the way. The two of them in front of Robert to restrain themselves, not even a few times eye to eye, only sneaking around when he wasn't looking. You pull my hand, I touch your hair. Robert's mind was fully focused on his missing brother and the others, completely not noticing the ambiguous atmosphere of these two people. Go this way, I smell them. Robert spoke with a shrug of his nose. Zach and Evelyn didn't object either, observing the terrain as they walked along. There was much less vegetation on this side than on their previous side, and the further they went, the less there was. The yellow soil on the ground was exposed, and it was also covered with lines that had dried up and cracked. It was obvious that water was scarce in this direction. Evelyn couldn't figure out how something so unorthodox could be in the same forest. On one side, there was a dense forest, while on the other side, the soil was cracked from drought. How did they get this way? Evelyn asked curiously. Zach, the mutant species trait prefers hot and arid climate. It should be to kill more mutants. At this moment, inside a stone cave, Daniel and his group were sitting around. William was seriously injured and lay unconscious on the ground. Richard gathered his eyebrows. We have to get out of this quickly. We didn't go back all night yesterday. I'm only afraid that Evelyn and the others have already started to worry. Samuel tapped the optical brain in his hand in annoyance. This shitty place. Messages can't even be sent out. But the mutant species outside are too strong. I really didn't expect that a 7th-order mutant species would actually appear. With just the few of us, we can't help it at all. Kevin replied with scarlet eyes. Daniel pulled out his weapon from the space knob. We can only let go of this situation With the instructor and the others watching, they shouldn't be able to stand by and see us in danger. Everyone distributed their weapons and put them on. They were planning to fight to the death. I smell Evelyn's scent. Kevin's face was alarmed. There was still a seventh-order mutant species outside, and it was too dangerous for them to find it at this time. That smell of blood mixed with a sweet scent was too compelling. Everyone here smelled it at once. It was Evelyn's great aunt's smell. Richard was so anxious that he stood up straight away. Go. On Evelyn's side, the three of them followed the odor. Before they even got close, they saw an ugly one-mutant species outside a cave. Robert pulled out his weapon from the space knob. It looks like this mutant should be the one blocking their path. Zack nods. It's definitely not a simple mutant species that can block their way. Evelyn, you stay back. If there's danger, you run first. Evelyn, is she the kind of person who is greedy and afraid of death? How can she leave her teammates to be a deserter alone? The mutant species had originally waited quietly at the entrance of the cave. It had been hungry for a long time. Ordinary food simply couldn't satisfy the appetite of a seventh-order mutant species. It had to consume the blood and flesh of an alien in order to continue evolving. Although it had lost its mind, the instinct of wanting to become stronger and evolve tormented it all the time. The mutant species was lying on its back at the mouth of the cave with its body relaxed, when it abruptly sensed the scent coming from behind it. There was someone. As if it had eyes behind it, it made a direct jump and dodged Robert's attack cannon. The mutant species was furious, tilted its neck and hissed, then violently unleashed its alien energy. Taking its feet as a round point, the whole piece of earth was frozen inch by inch. Ma'am, it doesn't look like a good thing. If it touches it, won't it just freeze itself? Even Samuel, who was also an ice-type psychic, couldn't unleash his psychic ability on such a large scale. This is the gap between the ranks. Seeing that he was about to be frozen on, Daniel came out of the cave in time. A circle of flames ignited around Evelyn. Almost forgot, he was a fire-type psychic ability. Fire overrides water. Ice ability is also considered an enhanced version of water ability. Daniel was only 4th ranked, while this mutant species already had 7th ranked, and the restraint and attributes didn't help much. To withstand the pressure of the mutant species, he would need to exert all his strength in order to protect Evelyn and save her from the danger of being frozen. Richard launched his attacks against the mutant species with a wide-eyed grin. His mental faculty's supernatural ability was of no use at all against the mutant species that were of a higher level than him. So he could only use the most primitive form of attack, firearms. For a while, the crowd showed off their skills and launched countless attacks at the mutant species. It was a pity that those laser cannons didn't do anything at all when they bombarded it. 7th rank. Is it that strong? Evelyn's jaw dropped as she watched. All those powers and high-tech guns that she was afraid of didn't hurt it at all. What's the point of playing with it? Anyone can beat it. The mutant species was enraged. The ice under its feet didn't stop. An ice arrow condensed in the air and attacked directly towards the crowd. Robert shouted, "Watch out!" In his panic, he only had time to raise a metal shield and block in front of Evelyn. As for himself, he was cut on his arm by an ice arrow. Blood flowed down. Daniel's face turned white. His powers couldn't hold up against a 7th-order mutant. But if he let up, Evelyn and the others would turn into ice sculptures. Robert wasn't the only one who was injured. The others were more or less scratched by the ice arrows. For a while, the smell of blood stimulated the mutant species even more. Its eyes became scarlet, and bright mucus oozed out from the side of its mouth. Evelyn, is it that gluttonous? Could you at least disguise it? Everyone is trying to kill you. Is it reasonable for you to drool at this time? Andrew on the flying ship didn't even think about it. He stood up to rush over. That monitor inside the little man, although by other people to protect. But his heart was clenched in pain. Andrew did not want to see Evelyn suffer even the slightest injury. Even if it was a shock, it cannot be. Manuel didn't stop him this time. A 7th-order mutant species was indeed not something that this group of students could defeat. The battle was stalemated. The mutant species unilaterally practiced abuse on them. It kept condensing ice arrows and shot them at everyone indiscriminately. The crowd blocked in front of Evelyn with their own skill. There were fire rings to defend against the rapidly condensing ice under their feet, and metal shields to defend against the incoming ice arrows. There were also thunderbolts that were blasted away just as the ice arrows were about to get close. The injuries sustained by everyone were getting heavier and heavier, but they were all still gritting their teeth. There was no other reason. Once they retreated, Evelyn would definitely be injured. Just thinking about that possibility made everyone's eyes sour. That was a consequence they could never accept. Evelyn commanded the system to put on the soft hedgehog armor first. She also didn't want to get hurt herself, and when the time came, it would be her who would be in pain. Then it was time to pick and choose in the system's backpack. flipped out a reward that she had gotten a long time ago and never used. Effect bounce. In the next second, she pushed aside Robert beside her and stepped out of the fire circle herself. In the face of countless ice arrows, she stood openly, with no intention of covering herself at all. Evelyn! Everyone shouted out in a rush of fire, only to see those ice arrows penetrate her body in the next second, yet no wounds appeared. Instead, dozens of bloody holes of different sizes appeared on that 7th-ranked mutant species. The ice under her feet quickly condensed onto Evelyn's body. However, she was still standing there intact, and that mutant species was frozen into an ice sculpture in an instant. After all, it was his own psychic ability, so it quickly activated its psychic ability again, trying to unlock the restrictions on its body. Evelyn yelled, "Now is the time, go!" Everyone put away their doubts, and all of them used their powers to frantically send out attacks on the mutant species with their firearms. It was enraged and roared again. Only this time the attack skipped Evelyn. Vaguely it knew that not only would it not be able to hurt her, it might hurt itself. Although it had no reason left, the instinct to avoid harm was still there. Any race knows to pick the soft ones. The others all suffered. One by one, they seemed to have become bloody men who crawled out of hell. Andrew was in a hurry and finally caught up. In his haste, he sacrificed his wood system's supernatural ability, and a tree violently drilled out of the frozen ground, growing bigger and bigger, and branching out into several branches. Vines sprouted from the branches and tightly wrapped the mutant species around it, getting tighter and tighter. Kata, kata. This was the sound of the mutant species being wrapped up in it, its bones being crushed. Within a few minutes, the mutant species became a puddle of blood. Andrew pulled Evelyn over and looked her up and down. "How are you?" "Not hurt." Evelyn waved her hand. Not only was she hurt, she didn't even have a bit of blood splattered on her. Andrew saw that she was indeed fine, and pulled out several bottles of potions from his space and distributed them to the others. Everyone drank them before they felt better and slightly recovered their strength. The crowd tacitly didn't mention the weirdness on Evelyn just now. Robert took a big step into the cave and carried his brother William out and gave him a bottle of potion. Last night, it was thanks to William's earth powers that the group got a night's respite. They were chased by the mutant species and fled to this small cave. The mutant species' body was too big to enter, but its psychic ability was able to enter. William sacrificed his earth-type supernatural ability and reinforced the cave entrance with several layers before escaping the mutant species' attack. However, he himself also fainted due to the fact that he had used too much of his supernatural energy and was off his feet. After listening to everyone's explanations, Andrew rubbed his tightly locked brows. This matter was too weird. First, there was the large number of mutant species that Evelyn and their camp encountered. Then there was the 7th-order mutant species that Daniel and his group encountered. These things happened at the same time. How could they look like they were targeting them? "You guys should come back to the flying ship with me first." There was nothing to object to. One by one, they were all seriously injured, although they had already drank the healing potion. But they were human beings, not gods. They still needed time to recuperate before they could recover. Just as they said they were ready to leave, different mutant species emerged densely around them. Daniel's eyes widened. How is there still? Andrew's heart stuttered. There were more than what Evelyn and the others encountered yesterday. And there were all 3rd and 4th-order mutant species in there. And there were 2 7th-order ones. Manuel narrowed his eyes slightly as he watched the security feeds from his glass of wine on the flying ship. "It's about time your secret was exposed." Andrew quickly reacted. "Everyone, escort Evelyn out first." The mutant species were coming on strong, and with injuries and dizziness on their side, it was likely that they wouldn't be able to get through this today. Nonetheless, it was necessary to try to ensure Evelyn's absolute safety. Evelyn hurriedly spoke. "No, no, no. I'll be fine. It's too dangerous now. Escorting me away is simply impossible." She had an effect bounce. No one could hurt her. They had one more hope of surviving if she stayed. The mutant species didn't give them time to discuss, and had already attacked in waves. Even though everyone's stamina had been exhausted, they were still strongly holding on to their resistance. One of the 4th-ranked mutants was about to slice open Daniel's chest with its palm. Evelyn rushed to stand in front of him and took the slap for him. Daniel exclaimed with red eyes, "Evelyn!" At this moment, he still had no sense, forgetting that his previous attacks bounced back to Evelyn. He only kept blaming himself in his mind. Why couldn't he have been stronger? Even if he had been stronger, he wouldn't have caused her to suffer such an injury. The effect rebound didn't fail. Although the palm went through her chest, there wasn't a single bit of pain. Instead, the mutant species, with a large hole broken in the same chest position, simply hiccuped. Daniel wrapped his arms around Evelyn, and he couldn't help but shed a tear. "How could you do something so dangerous?" "Stupid or not." Evelyn flashed an incomparably bright smile at him. I'm fine. The skill of effect rebound was too unbelievable. That attack had penetrated her chest and froze without anything happening. Manuel's eyes sank as he looked at the image in the monitor. What kind of supernatural ability was this? He thought he had seen a lot, but he had never seen such an overbearing psychic ability. The fight continued. Evelyn blocked the fatal blow for this one at one time, and shielded that one behind her at another time. The crowd was moved to tears. This is what kind of a worldly good woman now. She actually sacrificed her life for herself and stood in front of the group of men. All of a sudden, everyone's hearts were on fire, and even their morale was uplifted. Andrew had the strongest psychic ability and had already reached the 8th order. He maneuvered his psychic ability and spawned a number of saplings from the land under his feet, locking the mutant species firmly in place and crushing them. Perhaps the bloody odor of this side of the fight spread out, and not long after, another group of wild beasts came around. Holy shit, this fight won't end, one wave after another. Samuel hatefully opened his mouth to spit. It was obvious that everyone didn't have the energy to meet the battle at this moment. Strong as Andrew, his face was also a bit pale due to the consumption of his supernatural energy. It was no joke for him to take on 2 7th-ranked mutant species on his own. The mutant species were still attacking, and the beasts also saw fit to come and get a piece of the action. Evelyn frowned in extreme distress. No, we have to fight quickly. Kevin as well as Samuel and the others were only at the beginning of the 4th rank. They couldn't withstand such a strong attack. What kind of props did she have besides effect bounce? While fending off the mutant species, she rummaged through her backpack. It was also thanks to the fact that no one could do any damage to her, so she was able to use 2 things at once. Found it, the beast tooth. The previous world's beast god gifted it to her, saying that it could be activated 3 times and command all beasts. Looking at the miserable appearance of the others, despite Evelyn's heart's reluctance, she gritted her teeth and used it. For a moment, the sky and earth changed drastically, and a beast shadow suddenly appeared in midair. Having never seen it before, Evelyn didn't know what kind of beast it was. The tiger didn't look like a tiger, and the lion didn't look like a lion. The beast had a majestic coat of hair, and it opened its mouth and whistled in midair. Those sharp fangs were bared, and one could imagine how they would bite into the flesh of an enemy in a sparring match. Yo, I didn't realize that calling out to the beasts was also this way. Isn't it all the rage in their beast circle to call out before shaking people off? The others also saw the sight in the air, and everyone didn't know it was Evelyn who did it yet. There was just a pang of despair in their hearts, and they always felt that it was a call for help. Such a sight was simply unheard of and unseen. The 2 7th-order mutant species were not to be outdone, and screamed twice more with their necks held high. Evelyn. For a moment, the ground shook, and a strong tremor came from the entire continent. Andrew's pupils shrunk slightly. This is... Evelyn couldn't say that it was made by herself, and could only lower her eyes and pretend she didn't hear it. Zach implicitly glanced at Evelyn. On the flying ship, Manuel continuously received several orders from above. Quickly bring troops to support. Those beasts don't know what's going on. Each one of them is like being on hormones. Surprisingly, all of them have started to migrate. Such a fact was too unbelievable. No one could imagine why the beasts suddenly rioted. The wild beasts that were originally surrounding Evelyn and the others, ready to pick up the pieces, immediately turned their heads and attacked those mutant species. All the beasts lurking in the forest came this way. There were wolves, tigers, lions, leopards, bears, and elephants. The smaller ones, even those squirrels and rabbits, rushed over. The sight of carnivores and herbivores in such harmony was a sight to behold, and everyone froze. But with the beasts joining in, everyone was finally able to take a breath. Once the mutant species tried to attack over, there were hordes of wild beasts in front of them, pressing them to get through. Everyone slacked off, and one by one, their faces were stagnant as they looked at the change in front of them. Although the mutant species had supernormal abilities, they couldn't resist the number of wild beasts. Even though those 2 7th-order mutant species had shaken a lot of mutant species, they were still unable to withstand the thousands of beasts. Playing a wheel battle, those beasts were able to trample these mutant species to death with 1 beast and 1 foot. The critters attacked while chattering and discussing. Beat them to death. How dare they hurt the great beast god? Those who insult the beast god die. Oops, run slowly, you're going to step on me. Make it quick. Whether we can leave a name in the beast god's heart depends on this time. Evelyn swallowed, almost forgetting that the beast's teeth also allowed her to understand the language of animals. Listening to the sound of their discussion, she felt her worldview crumble. Animals had such strange ideas too. She stared intently at the group of animals, only to see that at the front of the pack were 2 tigers, one a little chubby and looking a little short with all 4 paws, which Evelyn didn't recognize at first, until she saw the other one next to her. The tiger's head was bare, not too recognizable. It's the same tiger cub that ate the smartest lollipop. Then the plump one next to it should be the old familiar tiger. 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 Evelyn yelled. The tiger running ahead paused in its steps, but didn't stop. It had just come over when it saw its acquaintance, but didn't go over to greet him. It had to perform well in front of its idol, the beast god. At this moment, when it heard that person calling out to her, it didn't bother. Instead, it was extraordinarily brave, biting and scratching at the mutant species. Evelyn's face was full of complexity, a little speechless. Who taught it the tiger to attack like that? How was it so similar to the kitten she used to have? Other tigers were majestic. Why was the tiger's style so funny? Just like a woman fights, only scratching hair and Flower's face. Just like playing house. The tiger cub beside him is also not willing to show weakness. Stepping on the mutant species repeatedly jumped horizontally to a DJ, just like in the disco. Manuel also led his troops to arrive in time. But the pressure didn't give them any space to play. The group of beasts attacked towards the mutant species like crazy and didn't hurt the humans either. Boss, I'm not dreaming, am I? The soldier behind him froze and spoke. The battle didn't last long. In just half an hour, all the mutant species died. One by one, they died in a miserable state, not even leaving behind a whole body. The effect of ordering all beasts ended, and everyone went back to wherever they fought. Only Tiger walked up to Evelyn with his tiger cubs. Zack stepped in front of her, ready to guard against the two tigers doing anything dangerous. Evelyn took his hand and comforted. Don't be afraid, I know these two tigers. She walked up and patted the tiger's head. Everyone's heart tightened, fearing that the tiger would get angry. Who knew that the tiger was as boneless as it was, lying on the ground in a flash, revealing its soft belly and hugging her arm to pamper her. Manuel's eyebrows were full of interest. It seems that not only Andrew has a secret, this extraordinarily thin student also has a secret. Daniel rubbed his eyes. He wasn't mistaken. The others felt the same way. The tiger spilled his guts and opened his eyes. What are you doing here? Evelyn was the first to strike up a conversation with it. Ow, I don't know. I woke up in a different place. You're still alive? I thought tigers only live to be in their 20s. Ow, 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 I'm not a tiger. If you're not a tiger, what are you? Ouch, I'm a divine tiger. Then it's still a tiger. One person and one tiger were talking back and forth, and the others were stunned at how Evelyn seemed to understand. Good thing they didn't have long to catch up. Evelyn had already spoken to the tiger. She still had 2 pet contract scrolls in her hand, so it would be a good idea to use them. So she simply contracted with the tiger and the tiger cubs. The tiger cub had once eaten the smartest lollipop she had given her, and his brain was now smarter. Although the image was a bit hot, it was much better than other beasts. At least they could communicate normally. With these 2 tigers were also considered more familiar. After all, the tigers had also helped her bring up her children a few times, and it was no surprise that she would have to give birth to many more babies in the future. So with such a big sister-in-law nanny in front of her, how could she let go? Andrew coughed twice, pulling back the attention of the crowd. Come on, back to the flying ship. Evelyn whispered a couple of words to Tiger. She'll contract the next time they run into each other. It's not very convenient now with all the people. The group stepped onto the flying ship. Some of the other students had already come up early. The original schedule was to train in the field for a week, but now with the beast migration and so many mutant species, naturally, it was aborted midway. The 8 of them were still in the same room. Andrew took Evelyn to her side of the separate bedroom to shower. She was sweaty from the fight she had just had, and was indeed sticky and uncomfortable. In the hall, the students were talking about what they had seen this time. I don't know who was the first to mention it. Do you guys smell a sweet smell of blood? A boy reddened. It seems like it's the special days of the month for noble women. I've gone to participate in the Bainyin Noble Women's Escort Army selection before. You kid, you've gone crazy thinking about women. Where are the noble women in the middle of nowhere? Daniel and the others looked at each other and pressed the matter to the bottom of their hearts. It's a good thing she went to Andrew's separate dormitory, otherwise there's no telling what would have come out. Evelyn stripped naked in the bathroom and put a tank of water, intending to take a comfortable soak. When she first came here before, she was the one who was dirt poor, and these washing facilities, in addition to being able to use the water mist mode, could also be used with tap water. After washing up, Andrew served a glass of milk. It's been hard on you this time. Did the beast migration have anything to do with you? There were too many mysteries on her, and the damage rebound effect was too counterintuitive. Andrew had to suspect that this incident was also her doing. Evelyn sipped the milk without the slightest change in her face. It doesn't matter, ah. The milk dipped up her lips, leaving a white circle, and she stuck out her tongue and licked it. Andrew's eyes darkened, his throat rolled involuntarily, and there was still that incomparably sweet scent of blood in his nostrils. His body reacted marvelously. Just stay here and rest, the smell. It will draw attention to the others. Evelyn dutifully sat on the couch and nodded. Not interrupting, are we? The door opened, a flirty voice rang out. The visitor's Manuel, who didn't knock, looked Evelyn up and down. With an answer in his mind, he turned to Andrew and asked, "You actually have a noblewoman in private. Is that why you moved to the school?" Andrew coughed lightly twice to hide his discomfort and didn't answer his question. "Is something wrong with you?" Unhappy shooing. Manuel clasped his arms with a tiste in his mouth. "It's a major offense to harbor a noblewoman. Considering we were once part of the same legion, I could have not reported what happened to you before, but now her existence must be reported, and by the looks of it, she's almost 20, right?" Evelyn couldn't figure out the browbeating lawsuit between these two. "Don't blame him. I'm the one who didn't let him report it. I snuck into the military academy." "You could have avoided the military school without help," Manuel disdained. Evelyn choked on him. "Anyway, this matter has nothing to do with anyone. If you want to report it, report it. It's my fault alone." Manuel abruptly came closer and sniffed at her ear. "What's your relationship? You're so protective of him." He pulled away before Andrew could get his hands on him. Evelyn's face was streaked. What kind of relationship could it be? An instructor-student relationship. But when she thought about how much Andrew cared about her, it didn't seem like it. Andrew narrowed his eyes and peeked at her, curious to know what she was thinking. Thinking once in her head, she replied, "Friendship." Seeing Andrew's face that instantly blackened, Manuel laughed painfully. Yes. So you guys are friends then? It seems that I also have a chance, right?" "What chance?" "Manuel, your daughter has to choose her husband at the age of 20. You know about that, right?" Evelyn nods. "I'm an 8th order alien. What do you think of me?" Andrew lifts him straight by the collar and throws him out of the room, instructing Evelyn, "Get some rest. I'll come by later to bring you food." Manuel stopped the door. "Wait." Andrew scowled. "What else do you want?" Manuel rolled his eyes. "Come on. The smell of her blood is so strong. Even if she doesn't live in a multi-person dormitory, so many faculty and staff over here can easily smell it. Okay?" After saying that, he pulled out something, the tips of his ears red. "Use this. I just asked my sister. The kind you're using right now is the most common one. This one of mine is special for noble women. It's not for sale on Star Network. It can cover up the odor." There are two modes of procreation in the interstellar age. Men who don't have wives can spend exorbitant credits to go to the nursery barn to have a child with their own genes. The other was to conceive a child naturally with an ordinary woman or a noblewoman. Manuel's mother is a 7th-ranked noblewoman, and he has a biological sister. Of course, his mother didn't only have his father as a man, so his biological sister is also a half-sister. But this era doesn't care about that, as long as it's the same mom. It's the same as a biological child. Evelyn was kind of weirdly embarrassed that an unfamiliar older man was talking about the monthly bit about women in front of her. "Oh, thanks." Seeing her take the stuff, he turned and pulled Manuel away again. The two made their way to another room on the flying ship. Manuel laughed softly. "No way, Andrew. At least we've been brothers for so long. You have different blessings? Hiding this from me for so long. If it wasn't for my own resourcefulness, I still don't know when I would have found out about this." Andrew's pupils sank violently. "Watch what you say in front of her. She's timid and can't stand being scared." Manuel's eyes were imploring. "In what capacity are you warning me? Don't forget, you're just friends. You and I have the right to fight for." This conversation ended up going nowhere. Manuel had also used his light brain to report to the Federation, and after the flying ship landed, Evelyn would be taken to the noble girl camp. Although it was nice to have the noble daughter in private, but in the end, the name wasn't right. Moreover, with Evelyn's purification ability, she could be a good help to the generals in the army. If she returns to the noble daughter camp, the generals will have one more hope of surviving. Manuel is already 25 years old, born into a noble family, and his family has been paving the way for him to choose a suitable wife in recent years, only that he didn't have any interest in any of those arrogant noblewomen in the noblewomen's camp. He saw Evelyn is not bad. Unlike other noblewomen, she is not soft and weak, and she has a special ability that can't be harmed by other people. Of course, he didn't report this particular ability. He had his own plans. Daniel avoided the group of roommates and came to Andrew's room alone. No one knew which room Evelyn was in, but he did. Hey, it just so happened that the captain of this flying ship was a member of their Chung family, so he immediately messaged the other side to learn her location. Thinking he was the first to find her, he knocked on the door with gusto. "Evelyn, Evelyn." The two inside the house parted in a huff, cheeks flushed on both sides, unfulfilled longing in their eyes. Daniel had an inside man, but Zach had Evelyn. The two shared the spot straight away, and she'd called Zach over since Andrew had left. She was a little bored being alone, so she wanted a man to have some fun with. Straightening her clothes, she cleared her throat. Come in. Daniel opened the door excitedly, and the first thing he saw was Zach sitting on the couch. His eyes went round. What are you doing here? Zach had nothing to be embarrassed about. He was a man of honor now. Before it was the situation that didn't allow it, so he didn't have a chance to talk about it. Now he could flaunt it in a dignified manner. I came over to see my girlfriend. What girlfriend? Who's your girlfriend? Daniel exclaimed.